One of the most important virtues of the spiritual life is the virtue of humility. St. Augustine was once asked about what are the instructions of the Christian religion, of the Christian faith, and this is what he replied. The first part is humility. The second, humility. The third, humility. And this I would continue to repeat as often as you might ask direction. It's a very important virtue. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about what is humility, then explore what it is that Jesus is telling us about humility in the gospel, and then maybe try to give 3 practical things we could do to try to put this into practice in our life, to grow in humility. So what is humility? We often think of humility as kind of making ourselves small, or not calling attention to ourselves, or denying praise or denying compliments that we receive. And in a sense, humility involves some of these things, but humility is deeper than that. So at the core, humility is 2 things. The first thing is knowing the truth of who we are, especially before God. So the first thing of humility is knowing the truth of who we are, especially in relation to God. And then the second thing is behaving accordingly to this truth, behaving according to this truth. So there's a mind element, a knowledge element, knowing who I am, especially before God. And there's an action element of behaving in accordance with this knowledge that I have in my mind. So let's explore this with an example. So imagine that you are friends with Michael Phelps, and you're hanging out with Michael, and one day you tell him, "Hey Michael, you are a great swimmer." And he says, trying to be humble, No, I'm not really that great of a swimmer. In fact, I'm a pretty terrible swimmer." Is that humility? Not really. He's lying. That's not humility. Humility is the truth. So that is not humility. Now, another reaction from Michael Phelps could be, you tell him, "Michael, you're a great swimmer." And he says, "Oh yeah, I know. I'm amazing," right? You could say that too. Would that be humility? No, it wouldn't be. Why? Because in a way, what he's saying is true, but the attitude with which he's saying it is actually false, because instead with that attitude, he's ascribing everything to himself, as if he was just a self-made man, that everything is due to him. His greatness is due to him, when in fact that is not the truth, right? The truth is so much is just a gift. In fact, I would say 99.99999% of it is just a gift, right? It's this acknowledgement. I could have been born blind, or my lungs could have been just, I had a lung disease or something, or I could have, been born in a family that didn't have access to swimming lessons, right? Etc., right? There's just so much of it's just a gift. It's just a gift. So knowing that truth will be humility. Yes, I know that I am good at what I'm doing, but I also know that it is not just thanks to myself. In fact, most of it is just a gift. Most of it is just a gift. So maybe, I don't know what would be the appropriate reaction of how you react humbly, but maybe one way to do it could be just saying thank you. This thank you that's both acknowledging the truth of I am a good swimmer. I just won the gold medal, whatever it is, right? But also I know that it's just so much, it's just a gift. So it can just be a thank you, right? So we don't deny the truth, or we also don't ascribe it to ourselves. That's what humility is, knowing who we are before God and then acting accordingly. What is Jesus telling us about humility in the gospel? So there's 2 parables in the gospel today, and the second one focuses on humility. It's this parable of a master and a servant, right? The servant comes back from working, and Jesus kind of poses this questions of, well, when the servant comes back, does the master say, "Hey, sit down, rest, let me serve you"? Or does the master say, "No, serve me, and then after you're done serving me, then you can go ahead and eat," right? And does the servant thank him for doing his duty, or he just expects the duty to be done? Right? So humility is knowing the truth. So if the servant knows the truth of his relationship with the master, He knows he is a servant, that he owes service to his master. And so he doesn't feel resentful because he's having to work, because he knows he owes this to his master. He's not looking for a thank you because he knows he owes this. It's a debt that he has towards his master. So he doesn't, need to be thanked. He's just doing what he's supposed to be doing. The parable can seem a little bit harsh, especially because we're not used to talking about this dynamic or reality of a servant and a master, because we live in a democratic world and it can seem kind of odd and harsh. So let me try to give you maybe like an example of how this may look in today's kind of society, to kind of see how it's really not that harsh. So imagine that you and your spouse are known for, and you and your spouse have made a lot of money, just for whatever, and you're known in your local community for having made a lot of money, you and your spouse. So one day you're hanging out at a coffee shop, and you strike a conversation with this young man, and you're talking with him, and he actually knows who you are because you're known in your community, and he knows you have money. And so at some point after talking for a little bit, he just becomes very bold and says, hey, I'm about to start college, and I've been looking for funding, and I just can't find any funding. And would you be willing to pay for my tuition for my college? You're kind of taken aback, like, I just met you. But you move with compassion because you know you've been blessed with money. And so you tell him, hey, let me talk with my spouse, make sure that, they're okay with it, and then I'll get back to you. So you go home, talk to your spouse, and you both decide, hey, yes, we're going to support this young man. So you call him, you say, hey, good news, we'll pay for your tuition for your 4 years of college. And just two conditions. Number one, you got to keep up a GPA of 3.0 at least. And then I want you to meet with me at the end of each semester just to hear about how you're doing. So he's excited and he says, yes, that's no problem. I agree to the terms. And let's do it. So you start paying for his college. 4 years go by, you paid for his whole college. And you even throw a little surprise party for him, graduating party when he's done. And then at the party, he gives you this little letter, this envelope. And so you say bye and you go home. And then with your spouse, you open the letter. And this is what it says. Dear Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, I am grateful for all your support. I really am. I couldn't have had my education without you. At the same time, I am a bit offended that you never thanked me for all the effort I put into my studies. I kept up my GPA and met with you every semester, and you never thanked me for it. Wouldn't that be weird, right? That would be super odd. This young man is not understanding the relationship that you have with him and the fact that it's all been a gift. And that is the least he could do is to keep up the terms of the GPA. I mean, even him keeping up with his GPA is a gift to himself because it's good for him, right? He is really not understanding the truth of your relationship with him, right? Our relationship with God is similar, and this is what Jesus is getting at in the parable, except it's to the nth degree, right? He's not just paying for our tuition, but absolutely everything that we have is a gift from Him. All that we have is a gift from Him. All is gift. There is nothing you have that you have not received, right? You're not dropping dead right now. God is keeping you in existence. Right? The abilities you have, the skills, the access to education, the family you were placed with, the gift of your children, a family of friends, it's all a gift from Him. And so we owe Him everything. We owe Him everything. Humility is knowing this, knowing that everything is a gift from Him. In my relationship with Him, right? Everything has been given to me by Him, and so I act accordingly in gratitude and wanting to repay Him, to give Him everything back because He's blessed me and given me so much. Similar to how this young man would have been grateful, he would have wanted to pay back. Thank you so much. I'll pay you back. And maybe you would have said, no, you don't need to pay me back. It's a gift. But he would have wanted to give back because he's so grateful and really understands that it's a gift. So that is what humility is and kind of how it looks. So practical things we could do, 3 practical things we could do to put this into practice. First thing is to ask the Lord for the gift of humility. Just ask Him. If you want to grow in humility, just ask the Lord, Lord, grant me the virtue of humility. I want to grow in humility. Please grant me the gift of humility, this virtue. Second thing we could do is just actually meditate upon the fact of our relationship with the Lord, right? This thing we've been talking about today, how everything's gift, if we don't meditate upon it, then we won't know the truth. And so if we don't know the truth, we can't live in accord with this. Trying to ponder, spending time pondering how everything is really just a gift is another way to really grow in humility. If we are able to know it, it'll just flow into the way in which we act. And the third thing that we could do is maybe striving to think less about our rights and thinking more about our duties and our responsibilities. What I mean by this, we live in a society that emphasizes rights a lot, and it's good because we all have rights, right? But it can be overly emphasized, right? I have a right over my body. I have a right over my finances. I have a right to private property. I have a right over how I live my sexuality. All these rights, we want to demand that what is owed to us is given to us, that our rights are given to us. But do we spend as much time realizing that the rights that we owe to others, what is it that I owe to others? Do I demand, am I as exacting in what is owed to me as to what I owe God and others, right? We want to try to have this inner fight. If we realize we're always demanding what is owed to us, what our rights are, we want to try to diminish that, even if it's legitimate things that are owed to you, and say, well, what about, do I give what I owe to others and to God with this precision with which I'm demanding that my rights be given to me? Probably not. So we could try to think less about our rights and think more about our responsibilities and our duties. What is my duty towards my body? What is my responsibility towards my money? What is, my duty towards the way I live my sexuality, etc., right? And ultimately, we can just finish kind of how Jesus finishes the parable. When we're able to think about our duties, we know we're just, when we fulfill the commands of the Lord, we really haven't done God any favors, but we are just unprofitable servants who have done only what we were obliged to do.